Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to Enter Adolf Hitler Stage Left Between Two Wars 1919 Part 4 of 4. If you want to check out my previous reactions to Between Two Wars, I'll put the playlist card at the top. Just click on it and you'll be able to access it. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
In 1919, Germany is burning with revolutionary fires, and a young man in Munich starts his march to power. He is Adolf Hitler. Welcome to Between Two Wars, a summary of the interwar years from the uncertainty and hedonism of the 1920s to humanity's descent into the darkness of the Second World War. I'm Indy Nidell. The German Revolution that began with the Kiel Mutiny is now in full swing. Demonstrations and riots have become a basic part of German life. The Revolutionary Council of People's Deputies, led by Chancellor Friedrich Ebert and the Social Democrats, has introduced universal suffrage. All women and men 20 years or older now have the vote. So elections have been announced for January 19th. But the parties on the extreme left wing refuse to take part in the election. Instead, they want to incite the German workers to rise up, take down Ebert's provisional government, and proclaim a German Soviet state. On January 4th, they start setting their plan into motion. Karl Liebknecht, Rosa Luxemburg, their new German Communist Party, KPD, previously known as the Spartacists, and the Independent Socialists call for a demonstration to protest the government's dismissal of the Berlin chief of police, which was for refusing to act against them. Much to their astonishment, this new demonstration quickly grows to hundreds of thousands of people, many armed, and the demonstrators occupy train stations and newspaper offices, papers that previously had called for the murder of Spartacists. A general strike is declared, attracting 500,000 people.
I guess universal suffrage was not really a popular decision for these people. They wanted their own version of government, and that was the only solution in their minds, to make a leftist, unionist, Soviet republic, if I could say. Wow.
The Independent Socialists invite Ebert for talks, which he agrees to, but he's already had his deputy in charge of military affairs, Gustav Noschke, hire some of the Freikorps, private paramilitary militia, to put down the workers. The Freikorps grew out of groups of discharged soldiers with nationalist right-wing sympathies. When the revolution begins, these groups become literal death squads targeting whoever they believe to be central to the socialist movements. The largest and best-armed Freikorps is led by a Captain Waldemar Pabst. Under his leadership, the various groups now attack the workers in Berlin and quickly retake occupied buildings and streets.
Yeah, now this is where it becomes very bloody, messy, and terrible, and just unfortunate, and it leads to further calamity down the road. They should not have done that. They should have just negotiated, and let's find a solution to this problem, instead of now pitting against leftist idealist people and right, ultra right or right idealist people.
156 people are killed, most of them executed by the Freikorps. On Pabst's order, Luxemburg and Liebknecht are captured, beaten, and then murdered. The Spartacist uprising is over, and elections proceed with 83% of the electorate voting. The Social Democrats are the biggest winner, with 38%. Not enough to govern on their own, but together with the other two liberal parties, the DDP and Zenta, they have 76% of the seats in the new National Assembly. They form a coalition, and on February 11th, Ebert is elected provisional president of the National Assembly. He appoints Philipp Scheidemann to form a new government to replace the Revolutionary Council of the People's Deputies.
This government is now built on the blood of people who did not really see eye to eye. It's basically built on the blood of other Germans. It's not going to last.
Noschke is made Reichswehr Minister, Minister of National Defense. But the wave of revolts continues to roll across the country. In March, the Bremen Soviet Republic is proclaimed. Noschke sends in the Freikorps again, and in the ensuing battle, more than 400 people died. This, in turn, gives rise to massive strikes in the Ruhr and more demonstrations and uprisings all over Germany. In Berlin, street fights break out between left-wing revolutionaries and right-wing counter-revolutionaries. Noschke uses Pabst again to intervene against the revolutionaries. This time, they have orders to execute any suspect revolutionary leaders on sight. So more than 1,200 people, many of them uninvolved, unarmed civilians, are killed. Because of this volatile situation in Berlin, the National Assembly will convene in an old theater in the town of Weimar, a few hundred kilometers south. So the new German Republic, although officially still called the German Reich, will later become known as the Weimar Republic. The National Assembly has one major purpose: draft a new constitution for a free, democratic federal union. The Weimar Constitution, that is adopted on the 11th of August 1919, does establish a free democratic state, but it also has a built-in flaw that arose from the fear of all of the uprisings when it was being drafted. Article 48 gives the German Chancellor special powers to suspend civil liberties and use armed force at his own discretion in the case of a national emergency. In the hands of a future Chancellor, Adolf Hitler, this article will be the eventual downfall of Germany.
They didn't think about putting in a time limit to how long this, emergency measures can be in place for the Chancellor. Like at least a month or two. And if you wanted to continue, then you have to go to court and request the court to, extend the national emergency measures or something. Have safeguards upon safeguards to make sure that even with this ultimate power that this head of state will have, it will still be constrained due to time limits, and also he or she still has to have authority given to him by the legislative body of the government. But I guess they didn't think about any of that.
That man is 30 years old in 1919 and begins his rise to power this year. Hitler came from the Austrian town of Braunau, near Salzburg on the Bavarian border, a little more than 100 kilometers southeast of Munich. He fought with the Bavarian army in the World War, where he was wounded in a gas attack that left him partially blind for life. After spending the final months of the war in hospital, he now works as a deputy battalion representative for the state under the Social Democratic government in Bavaria led by Kurt Eisner. In February, Eisner is assassinated, and the short-lived Bavarian Soviet Republic is proclaimed. Again, the Freikorps are sent in to put down the revolutionaries. Now, among them is one Ernst Röhm. Hitler and Röhm will later become close friends, and Röhm will be instrumental in building the violent paramilitary branches of the Nazi Party. Now, it's important to note that Hitler is not involved in the Bavarian right-wing counter-revolution of 1919. Instead, he continues his job under the Soviet government, apparently without any problems. According to historians Thomas Weber and Ian Kershaw, Hitler is, at this point, sympathetic to the liberal social democratic cause and has not yet developed his hatred of communism. We do know for a fact that a couple of years later, Hitler will say, "Everyone was at one time a social democrat." At the beginning of the year, Hitler is also appointed to Bavarian Army intelligence with the purpose of observing and reporting on potentially dangerous extremist right-wing associations. This is a pretty classic case of putting the fox in charge of the henhouse. Anyway, in September, he's sent to monitor a meeting of one of the many ultra-nationalist, anti-Semitic, anti-capitalist splinter parties in Munich, the Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, DAP, which had been founded at the beginning of the year by locksmith Anton Drexler. During the meeting, Hitler finds himself at odds with statements made by another guest, Professor Baumann, who questions Drexler's anti-capitalist arguments. Hitler loses his temper and shouts the professor down. Drexler is impressed by Hitler's oratory skills, gives him a textbook called My Political Awakening, outlining Drexler's agenda, and invites Hitler to join the party. Take note, though, of what made Hitler blow a gasket at that meeting. It's in support of a classic socialist issue, anti-capitalism. Again, this lends credence to the idea that Hitler is, at the time, focused on socialist issues and has not yet formulated or perhaps even really developed his doctrines of ultranationalism and fanatic anti-Semitism. Over the next months, he will do so, though, mentored by Drexler. In any case, Hitler asked permission from his army superiors to join the party, using the argument that he can monitor the party more effectively from within, and they allow him to join. A month after joining the party, on October 16th, he holds his first public speech at a DAP rally. He discovers he has a knack for eliciting a strong emotional response from his audiences. He will later say that this was the moment that he found his true purpose in life. Enthusiastically, Hitler now starts promoting his own speeches, and more people flock to the meetings of what will soon become his party, the Nazi.
That guy looks like a performer. You guys actually fell in love with a performer. Yay. I'm sure his speeches galvanized all these men and women into loving his political standpoint, but essentially you guys were falling in love with a performer. Hey, and there are some politicians who actually still do this kind of expressiveness, not only through speech, but the way they present themselves. You know, their body, their bodily actions. You know, how they would gesture their hands, or how they would look at you with their eyes. Just the body movement, how they would walk up to the stage. You know, some of them, they inspire you with this kind of confidence and awe, and sometimes that's all you need to be mesmerized by that person, not necessarily their speeches. You know, you'll just be impressed by the way they're walking, by the way they're dressed, the way they just carry themselves with their own confidence as a politician. If anyone can tick those boxes, they've won almost half the battle, you know. And I guess that's what Adolf Hitler did. Like, truly, he was a performer.
Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. As 1919 comes to an end, all of the puzzle pieces for the conflicts that will lead to another world war are already on the table. The Japanese find themselves sidelined by the Western powers, fueling the fascist surge, threatening the young Japanese democracy. China and Korea feel they haven't been protected from Japanese colonialism, while Japan feels that its territorial rights have been damaged. Italy is also frustrated with the lack of success in Paris, and the Italian Fascist Party, founded in January this year by a certain Benito Mussolini, starts to grow. The French are angry.
You see, even Mussolini had that kind of performance thing about him, you know. Just the bodily gestures he made, it could just put you into a state of trance, like you're just falling in love with this person. I don't know.
For not getting to punish Germany even more and proceed to aggressively enforce the reparations they have achieved. The U.S. turns back on itself when the Senate refuses to support Wilson's attempt at creating the League of Nations, effectively torpedoing the whole purpose of the effort. Great Britain and France have managed to effectively block, or at least delay, the move towards independence in their colonies. Borders have been drawn or redrawn all over the world without consideration for the ethnic identity of the people in the border regions. Independence, inclusion, social justice, and suffrage movements all over the world are being beaten down with violence. Racial inequality has been codified into international law. The Russian Civil War and labor movements are fueling panic and fear of communist revolutions. Last, but by far not least, Germany is on the verge of collapse, with extremists on both ends of the spectrum waging war in the streets of its cities. And yet the world shows so much promise, with new inventions, social change, growing economies, and an explosion of creativity, changing life for the better at a breakneck pace. Join us in 1920 as the Roaring Twenties take off, a decade of uninhibited hope, hedonism, and prosperity, but also a decade of conflict, injustice, and war. In Germany, the decade will become known as Die Goldene Zwanziger, the Golden 20s. In France as Les Années Folles, the Crazy Years, which just might be the best description of them all. To get our episodes ahead of time and to support the effort to make more awesome content like this, join the Time Ghost Army on Patreon or directly on our timeghost.tv website. There you can also sign up for our forum for free. If you missed our last episode of Between Two Wars about the Versailles Treaty and the other revolutions all over the world, it's right here. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Time Ghost and World War II on YouTube. World War II week by week starts September 1st, 2018. See you next time. Well, before Prohibition starts, and I gotta go see a man about a dog.
Starting a government on the backs, or should I say the deaths of many people, never lasts. Starting a government paved on blood of those who might have thought differently from you never lasts for very long. And what's happening during the 1990s with Germany really set the tone or set the stage for what Hitler was going to become, and how powerful he would become, especially with these laws that were passed by the new government that was created from the Revolutionaries Council of Deputies, where the Chancellor would have emergency powers to quell down any sort of revolt that might occur in the country. Those kind of laws should have had safeguards on them. There should have been backup upon backup of safeguards in terms of, it has to be very difficult for the Chancellor just to initiate emergency powers that allow him to, call in the military to put down any kind of revolts or to do anything that might have been unconstitutional, But yeah, the government during that time didn't think about this. They never thought they would have someone like Hitler coming into power. Probably they never thought they would have anyone ever who'd actually use this power in the way that Hitler would use it in the future. And yeah, nowadays, as I was saying before, with politicians, there are some politicians who are stiff. They say the right things, they say interesting things, but they are stiff, and the audience or the public don't really connect with them. Maybe because of the way they look, the way they dress, the kind of words they use, and people just can't connect with them. And then there are politicians who are so good at attracting the audience, so good at catching the interest and the eyes of people, either through their bodily actions or sometimes also, yes, through the words they say. Sometimes politicians will give you so many dreams, so many emotional promises, they'll try and comfort you with words of saying, I understand you, I'm with you, I'm also suffering through the same situation. There are some politicians who will just make you believe in things that are just not factual at all. And politicians like that are extremely dangerous. We still have politicians like that in the world, in various countries. They have their time in the sun, and then eventually the sun sets on them, just like any other politician. But there are those who will refuse to go quietly into the night. There will be those who will try to have 9 lives like a cat, and that's what Adolf Hitler was trying to achieve, so that he could become the dictator of Germany and control Germany, and further achieve his dreams and his ambitions. And to do that, a lot of people died. A lot of people died. So guys, watch out for politicians who entertain you. They are not your friends. They are not people who understand you. No, those people are simply there to entertain you, to keep you in their gaze, to make you make you fall in love with them, and to be obedient to whatever they're saying. Be careful of people like that. Yeah, that's all I can say. Okay guys, that's it for today. Remember, if you liked the video, please give me a like, comment, subscribe to my channel, click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.